I do want to mention one sad thing really quickly. This is Ryung's last game.
Of NASL? Oh, because he hasn't had a bye yet.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Yes, this is Ryung's last game. He's 4-3, so he has 8 games. You're right. This is his last game in NASL group stages.
Crying.
It's alright, man. We'll make it. We have to move on, Andre.
Hakuna Matata. Okay, I'm ready to go. Let's go ahead and introduce the players. Go ahead, Frodan.
In the bottom, top right, we have Ryung, the Terran from Team Slayers. And Ryung just been playing fantastic against this player, DarKFoRcE from Team Alternate Attacks. Both players have moments where it's like, wow, brilliant play. And just sometimes not able to really capitalize on their opponent's mistakes. And you can see Ryung had moments of vulnerability, but in the end, played just a rock-solid Terran Berserk. Like, he was just immovable, never overextended, and he didn't have to really drop everywhere and really drag Zerg's attention every which way. Instead, he just played tempo-based TVZ, so it was very impressive to watch. Now we see a very similar opening from both players again, nothing really to change, but Dual Side has some interesting propositions, especially for the early/mid game with a very exposed natural and an exposed third too. What are your thoughts on Dual Side TVC?
Definitely lends itself to, you know, having that road circling Baneling bust be very relevant in this particular map. It's part of the metagame more so than other maps, so I think Ryung has to kind of be wary about that. Oh man, I love this. Frodan, I love this. The early gas, no matter what, if you don't use it or you do use it, I think you should always make this gas on maps where road circling Baneling is in the metagame. Because it basically says, hey, be careful, because I'm really capable of doing something really early.
Yeah, right now DarKFoRcE is pointing at the SUV with half a closed eye and say, you better watch yourself.
Shake, no, never mind.
Where are you going to go with that? I want to know.
It was a,
you can see that Ryung is...
I'll tell you off cast, bro.
All right, okay.
It was a song, man. Watch yourself. Shake your... Show me what you're working with. No? You know what I'm talking about?
Man. That was... I don't know that kind of music you listen to, Andre. I swear. If you combine your music taste with Roddy's music taste, we would have like the worst concert known to mankind.
It's Jersey Shore music taste, okay? That's what it is. You should know.
I'm just going to pretend like that wasn't said. But we do see that Ryung is getting a good scout of his opponent's base. You really do like that kind of music, don't you?
No.
Yeah, I know you, Andre.
I'm all over the place, bro. You actually know. You know I'm all over the place.
Actually, you don't even listen to music at all when you ladder. You're like one of the few people who don't require music whatsoever when you ladder.
I listen to Terran music. It's good enough for me.
That's true. Terran music. Dude, those covers on YouTube with Terran music always gets me pumped up. I do it before I do anything. Before I work out, before I eat, before I shower. As I shower, I listen to the Terran music.
When you sleep.
I'm listening to Terran music right now as well. Just you can't hear it.
Good stuff, bro. Good stuff.
Now let's focus back on the Terran base. You can see that he's going for reactored Hellions at this point. Very, again, similar. Now, the big thing is that you can mix it up a lot. On this map in particular, Hellion Banshee is very effective because the spots where Zerg have to defend are a lot tougher, especially with linear formation. Creep has to extend a little bit farther out than normal. Sometimes that's why we see Quad Queen on this map, spread it in 2 directions, one to the north, one to the east. You can see DarKFoRcE getting that 3rd Queen out, and so it won't have the most optimal creep spread to deal with these Banshees.
I'm trying to think if Banshees is an appropriate response on this map. I don't mind it.
I think it's good. We've seen players like Marine King do it, and
yeah.
I mean, sometimes sometimes Terrans try to go really aggressive with Marauder Hellion, but I don't necessarily like it on this map either, though.
Well, my biggest problem is that there's a Zergling Baneling bust around now when a Terran player just gets out 4 Hellions. So the Banshee is going to be a little bit off-timed for that. I feel like a lot of investment is kind of broken, and you will lose this base inevitably. So I don't know if it's the best choice given to what Ryung actually saw in this beginning stage. That extractor, you have to be so careful of that, man. I mean, that is super scary because there can be a ton of Banelings coming out right now into your base. So I don't know, maybe he's just super confident with his Hellions at this point and he knows he can hold things off. I'm a little bit puzzled about that choice, but okay, Banshees.
And you can see the first, it's not going to be one Banshee, it's going to be multiple Banshees. You see double armory in production from Ryung, so that should mean he's going to go for mech once again. Now, mech on dual sight isn't exactly a style that we usually see. We see a lot of marine tank. There's lots of cliffs where you can kind of really capitalize on that, and maybe, you know, you lean over towards some Hellion tanks, but the idea is mech straight up on this map. We haven't seen a lot of.
DarKFoRcE sees the first armory. He sees both of them. Wow, that's such a big advantage. DarKFoRcE just had the biggest money overlord scan right there. And basically, he knows... I was just about to say, DarKFoRcE is probably not going to go a super fast hive tech because whoever goes double upgrade mech on a map like this. Mech, I think, is most powerful when you're doing the 4 factory push and you're trying to you know, overwhelm your opponent with just obviously Hellion siege tanks. But I don't know, double armory feels super slow. And I think hive tech is going to be really strong, or even counterattacking styles would be really strong.
An interesting difference in this map versus Shattered Temple is that the third is a lot more accessible for Ryung compared to Shattered Temple. And if you go for double armory with this quick factories, it requires a hefty amount of gas. And you can see, you know, right now he doesn't necessarily need it, but he's going to start utilizing it, especially if he's going to keep up Banshee production. For now, Hellions are controlling the map. There was a lot of Zerglings in production. You can see DarKFoRcE try to mini run by attempt, but still going to just stay on his economy very nicely, getting his Spire out at the same time. Now, again, Muta's very key in dealing with mech, just because Mutas are so mobile. Speaking of mobile, these Hellions getting a quick surround on the Queen, and able to snipe at a huge stall in the creep spread of DarKFoRcE, and that's very good. If he gets another Queen, that'll be also monumental to the mid-game.
And I think DarKFoRcE is in a terrible position. I don't know how we let this slip around, but there's just so many Hellions out in the field, and now 2 Banshees are going to get in here. 3 Banshees, excuse me, are going to get in here. Look at that, cleaning up every single unit. The Zerglings are no more. And as it speaks, Queens are going to go toe-to-toe with Hellion Banshee. Looks like they will force it back. Unfortunate for Ryung, of course. Wow, an expansion style. Okay, this is throwing me for a loop, man. I don't even know what to. I don't have analytical insight for this build.
Well, we can extrapolate based off game number 1, because remember, Ryung wanted to go for a fast third in Shattered Temple, was not able to get it as quickly as he can. Now, what interests me the most is that it's not a planetary, and so it's going to be very hard for him to cover all of the bases. Very easy for counterattacks on dual site, especially with the amount of avenues you have to your opponent's bases. And with Mutas also onto the map, very hard for mech to cover all bases unless you go for a timing yourself, which is what Ryung is gearing up for with his upgrades eventually, as 2-2 is still just starting for production. So from there, we can shop at what Ryung is doing. But what's interesting is that DarKFoRcE, what he's... I'm trying to find it. He doesn't have... He got a third much earlier this game than he did in Shattered Temple.
Yes, he did.
But yet he hasn't been able to really capitalize on it because of the amount of pressure Ryung's been able to exert. So it's just very interesting change of dynamic.
And he's also keeping up with Mutas. He's just gone Mutas this game and not chosen to actually switch over to Roach. Now he does have the Roach Warren in place. He has not yet researched the speed for it. Instead, just continues to go additional Mutas. And let me tell you, 2-2 timings against Mutas, beautiful.
Pretty nasty. As you can see, these Thors are coming out in pairs. Ryung really getting in his Thor count early before he tries to move out into siege tanks or anything. Third is also safely snuggled up in the top center of the map.
There it is. Finally, Roaches are on the field. So he is getting that Glio Reconstitution. +1 flyer attack is also being upgraded, but a ton of Roaches. This is correct, defending against this potential, 2 base all in. I don't know if he knows about the 3rd base really quickly. Yes, he does now. There it is. So you should go for the counterattack in this position. Immediately when you see the 3rd and you see your opponent out in the field trying to make it look like it is 2 base all in, then you should obviously try to threaten and force all those units back. And all the position that he was able to gain is lost because he has to defend against this counterattack, since his army doesn't really have the investment that it should have with this expansion being up.
And the big thing is that DarKFoRcE's creep spread, he's been trying to keep on top of it, but again, those early queen snipes, pretty valuable. As you can see, DarKFoRcE hasn't really joined it so he can zone left or right that much. You can see immediately that DarKFoRcE trying to see if he can get center of the map control, but the barracks reveals the position of the units, and Ryung feinting to go in. Will he actually try to draw out some of that army and engage on it? 2-2 is done, so his army is pretty resilient, and the only upgrades from DarKFoRcE is his +1/+1 melee.
This is a little bit of an awkward attack, though, from Ryung's, given his production is just now started up. And it looks like DarKFoRcE has taken the supply lead. Here's the big attack coming from multiple sides. A ton of roaches, though, are not coming into the battle. And oh no, that could be a critical misstep from DarKFoRcE, but it looks like he might be able to clean it up as it is.
The big question is whether or not he's able to really deal with the Thors, because the Banshees are going to be able to wail on him for a long time. The Queens are being pressured off of it, and the Thors are working. The SCVs are no longer there to repair, as a lot of them was dropping. And you can see the Banshees trying to work on the Queens, and this is a very tightly contested battle, but in the end, it looks like Ryung barely manages to eke out enough. And DarKFoRcE's supply is dangerously low at this point, as he needed to keep a force of roaches to really push back the mechanized army. And a couple more SCVs are left to repair the Banshees and get ready to work. DarKFoRcE forced to remake his queens as well. His larva cycles have to reset. And that is going to be very tough for a Zerg player.
Just think, if you had those roaches in the battle, that would have been a very easy attack for DarKFoRcE. But unfortunately, he didn't. And the battle easily went, not easily, but it went to Ryung in that time around. And it looks like this follow-up push is looking to do a lot of damage. I don't think DarKFoRcE actually has the means to defend against this. He should probably evacuate this bottom middle base. Nope. Never mind. Well, his opponent isn't attacking.
What's going to make it even tougher is Lings are going to be borderline useless at one point, especially with +3/+3 going to finish, and Zerg not able to really keep up in the upgrades. And, I mean, DarKFoRcE is still on 1-1. Or, sorry, his +2 did finish. That's actually a very big thing in terms of keeping up slightly in the upgrades. But he doesn't have a strong answer now that Terran is really starting to grow an intimidating force. You can see the 4th base from DarKFoRcE is under siege, while the 5th base has been scouted. So DarKFoRcE has to cover a lot of area. He's instead going to go for a counterattack, which should be not that effective considering Ryung has a lot back at home.
This counterattack doesn't really make a lot of sense. I mean, all it takes is one Thor, basically clean everything up. Hellions are pretty expendable, and they're all over the place. They can get there in time, so I'm kind of confused about that attack. But as it is, though, apparently it worked. You know, I guess he was just thinking it could have been more, so he does back up from here. But a ton of Thors in the middle of the map, and the creep spread has been receded quite a bit. I mean, you can see the middle of the map really doesn't feature any creep spread. That's unfortunate. It gives you know, a lot of momentum and a lot of initiative over to the Terran player, who's going to use that to get his opponent out of position, and with that, obviously, he will get beautiful positioning.
Yeah, and again, those keeping the pressure and forcing the Queens to be pulled. Creep spread is not nearly as much as it should be because DarKFoRcE was saving for transfuses and whatnot, and as a result, those Banshees have been very effective in making sure that the mech army can't get easily surrounded. Now, DarKFoRcE is going to have to protect its expansions because, again, if Terran's able to get these strong positions and continue to hunt down the bases, then really DarKFoRcE can't do anything. He's trying to go from different angles, but great positioning out of Ryung, and he's really able to deny any kind of surround whatsoever. Look at how fast you're dropping, especially with 3-3. Thors with 39 damage ×2 on their attacks. You can see that he's immediately decimating any force that comes immediately at him. And at this point, what can DarKFoRcE really do against this many Thors? GG. Ryung takes game number 3 on dual site, and it takes a very strong win in this division.
Very impressive play. I was completely just confused about Ryung's build, but the fast 3-3 ended up being so powerful. And I think DarKFoRcE was scared the whole time because he's thinking to himself, well, you know, dual site is a very small map. I can be rushed at any time. I need to be careful for this push. So it kept him on lair tech for so long, and that inevitably killed him because the whole time Ryung was like, hey, I'm not going to attack you. I'm not going to attack you. Got beautiful upgrades. Now I'm going to attack you. And that's where he always caught his opponent off because he was behind in upgrades the whole game.
Yeah, and that 2-2 timing was really strong initially because he didn't have the amount of roaches. And in that 3-3, I mean, what can you do when you're 1-2, but you're not even using Zerglings anymore to defend using roaches? The roaches just starting +1.
So roaches are 0-1 in that point. I mean, not looking good.
That's not the fairest fight if I've ever seen one. Guys, that game and series was brought to you by iBuyPower, the PC company that can help you get your own pre-assembled computer. Just head on over to iBuyPower.com. Coming up next, we have a fantastic series, Noni versus Demaga. Noni seeking his second win in NASL Season 3. Demaga looking to move up in divisions accordingly. Also coming up next, we have a special edition of Eyes on the Community with Mr. Bitter. So we have lots of more action. We're only halfway through the day. More action from Division 2, Week 8 NASL Season 3 is coming up right after this.